A camera hums to life. 5 faces turn toward the light. The world will remember 4 of them by first name only. The 5th keeps her distance, looking past the lens as if she already knows the price of being seen. This is Tatjana Patitz, the quiet axis in a storm of flashbulbs. She stands inside the decade that manufactured the word supermodel, yet every gesture suggests a refusal to be manufactured. The others run toward the spotlight. She studies it, measures it, and steps aside before it swallows her whole. Why did the most elusive member of fashion's most famous circle choose the exit when the applause was loudest? What did silence give her that fame could not? And how did that choice transform her into a legend that whispers rather than shouts? She was born far from the flashbulbs that would one day chase her name. Tatjana Patitz came into the world in Hamburg, Germany, and spent her childhood on the sun-soaked shores of Sweden. Her father was German, her mother Estonian, and their quiet, unconventional life close to nature shaped the girl who felt more at home among horses and forests than in front of mirrors. She was tall, shy, contemplative. Beauty was not something she chased. It was something others began to notice when she least expected it. At 17, she entered a modeling contest in Stockholm almost on a whim. While she didn't win first place, her unique look, aristocratic cheekbones, deep-set eyes carrying a shadow of melancholy, captured the attention of the elite model management scouts. They saw what she could not yet see, a presence that defied the typical blonde sweetness of Scandinavian models. For Tatjana, the prize wasn't a crown, but an invitation to Paris, the epicenter of fashion. Leaving behind the simplicity of Sweden, she stepped into a world she did not entirely understand. Yet the contrasts defined her from the start. Part European royalty, part untamed outsider. She didn't radiate with eagerness. She observed, she listened, and she waited. And soon, the fashion world would wait for her too. Paris in the mid-1980s was a fever dream of velvet runways, angular silhouettes, and a new generation of models ready to eclipse the old guard. When Tatjana Patitz arrived, she was not the obvious star. She was reserved, a quiet storm among the thunderous personalities of the fashion world. But her mystery was magnetic. Photographers noticed the way she seemed to carry silence into the chaos of a studio. That silence made people lean closer. The first true turning point came when she was cast by Peter Lindbergh. His lens loved imperfection, and in Tatjana he found an aura that resisted the polished plasticity of the industry. Her portraits were not smiles, they were questions. When Lindbergh gathered 5 women for his now legendary 1990 Vogue cover, Tatjana's presence completed the equation. Besides Cindy Crawford's boldness, Naomi Campbell's fire, Christy Turlington's serenity, and Linda Evangelista's volatility, Tatjana was the enigmatic counterbalance. She didn't beg to be remembered. She lingered like a shadow you couldn't forget. Campaigns followed in rapid succession. Chanel, Calvin Klein, Revlon, and Levi's courted her. She became a fixture on European and American Vogue. In an era where supermodels were expected to project loud glamour, Tatjana's appeal was subtler, aristocratic. She embodied a kind of old-world melancholy, a reminder that fashion could whisper as powerfully as it shouted. Critics often asked, what made her different? The answer was that she was unwilling to perform a persona. She didn't want to be the sexy one or the glamorous one. She wanted to remain Tatjana. In an industry addicted to roles, her refusal to play one became her defining role. By the early 1990s, Tatjana was firmly part of fashion's mythology. She appeared in George Michael's Freedom 90 video, a cultural time capsule that cemented the age of the supermodel. Yet, even as her peers pursued Hollywood cameos, brand empires, and tabloid headlines, Tatjana kept her distance. She attended the parties but never surrendered to them. She walked the runways but never chased them. Fame never became her drug. It remained something she held carefully, like a flame she knew could burn out of control. Designers admired this restraint. Karl Lagerfeld described her beauty as timeless, belonging more to the pages of Renaissance paintings than to the catwalk. Versace loved the cool detachment she brought to his fiery gowns. And Vogue editors wrote that her photographs carried a haunting quality others couldn't replicate. The irony was clear. By resisting the frenzy, she became unforgettable. In a decade obsessed with noise, Tatjana's silence roared louder. But this rise was not about speed. Unlike Naomi's meteoric climb or Cindy's all-American media takeover, Tatjana's ascent was measured, steady, almost reluctant. That reluctance became her signature. It set her apart, and it set the stage for the moment when she would walk away entirely. But behind the radiant covers and ethereal photographs, Tatjana Patitz was never fully at ease with the machinery of fame. The supermodel era of the 1990s demanded more than beauty. It demanded performance, constant exposure, and an appetite for attention that Tatjana simply did not possess. While Cindy Crawford launched television shows, Naomi Campbell became a fixture in tabloids, and Claudia Schiffer transformed into a global brand, Tatjana quietly withdrew. Her absence was not sudden. It was deliberate, a slow retreat that confused the industry. The pressure was relentless. Fashion was no longer just about artistry. It was becoming commerce on steroids. Models were expected to be celebrities, to live under constant scrutiny, to feed headlines with every move. Tatjana resisted. She turned down interviews, declined reality television opportunities, and ignored the trappings of celebrity culture. For editors and agents who thrived on visibility, her resistance was maddening. For Tatjana, it was survival. By the mid-1990s, the frenzy of the supermodel phenomenon had reached its peak, and that was when she began stepping away. Instead of signing long-term endorsement deals or saturating the market with her image, she moved closer to nature. She relocated to California, to a ranch near Santa Barbara, where she surrounded herself with horses, open skies, and silence. In an era when disappearing was career suicide for a model, Tatjana embraced obscurity as freedom. Critics whispered that she had squandered her moment, that she lacked the ambition of her peers, but those who knew her understood. Tatjana was not interested in being a commodity. She wanted to live. Her retreat was not a collapse, but a rejection of the endless cycle of shoots, shows, and superficial adoration. Still, her choice came at a price. The fashion press, always hungry for drama, cast her absence as a failure. Headlines compared her dwindling appearances to the soaring visibility of her peers. Younger models with louder personas and more aggressive agencies replaced her. The industry that once worshipped her melancholy beauty now turned its gaze elsewhere. And then came the cruelest twist: invisibility. By refusing to play the game, Tatjana became the forgotten member of the Big Five. While retrospectives on the era often replayed images of Naomi, Cindy, Claudia, and Christy, Tatjana was often an afterthought. It was as if her quiet refusal had erased her from the narratives she helped create. The personal cost deepened when she faced challenges away from the runway. Raising her son as a single mother, Tatjana shielded him fiercely from the spotlight. Money was never the priority, but it meant turning down opportunities that could have revived her celebrity. The trade-off was worth it to her, though it left her further outside the glare of public memory. For Tatjana, the fall was not scandalous in the tabloid sense. There were no explosive affairs, no courtroom dramas, no messy headlines. Her fall was quieter, subtler, and perhaps more haunting. It was the story of a woman who chose to walk away from power when the world was begging her to take more. The irony was sharp. In choosing obscurity, Tatjana exposed the superficiality of an industry that pretended to value individuality but punished those who would not conform. She did not burn out, she stepped out. And in that silence, her myth began to take shape. Redemption for Tatjana Patitz was not a dramatic comeback under blinding lights. It was a quieter, more profound reclamation of her life on her own terms. While her peers extended their fame through endorsements and television, Tatjana's rebirth came through simplicity, authenticity, and devotion to what mattered most, her son Jonah and the natural world that had shaped her since childhood. California became her sanctuary. She raised horses, tended her land, and built a rhythm of life far removed from the chaotic schedule of runways and photo shoots. Friends recalled that her home felt like another universe. No paparazzi, no fashion politics, only the serenity of wide skies and the soft thunder of hoofs. In a world where supermodels often struggled with the loss of relevance, Tatjana found relevance in privacy. Occasionally, she returned to fashion, not out of necessity, but by choice. When she appeared again in Lindbergh's later projects, the images struck audiences with their honesty. She was no longer the enigmatic 20-something draped in couture, but a woman who had lived, who carried lines of experience on her face, and who wore them like rare jewels. In an industry obsessed with youth, Tatjana's quiet reappearances reminded people that beauty was not fragile, it was resilient. Her redemption also lay in how she reframed success. For Tatjana, success was not magazine covers or contracts. It was raising a child with dignity, protecting him from the toxic allure of celebrity, and proving that a woman could define herself outside of an industry that consumed so many. She didn't need applause to validate her existence. Her life itself became the validation. Even as illness later shadowed her, Tatjana never courted pity or spectacle. She chose grace, dignity, and privacy. And in that choice, she became a rare figure in fashion, a woman who could step away without bitterness, who could let go without losing herself. Her redemption was not about reclaiming fame. It was about reclaiming peace. Tatjana Patitz's legacy is one of absence as much as presence. In an era defined by loudness, she proved that silence could echo louder than applause. She was the fifth face in the famous Big Five, yet she never needed the tabloids or endorsements to immortalize her. Instead, her myth grew precisely because she resisted the spotlight. Her beauty was never just surface. It was soulful, tinged with a sadness that set her apart. Photographers saw it, designers treasured it, and audiences still remember it. Even in retrospectives where her name is sometimes overshadowed, her images remain haunting, unforgettable. She was proof that not every legend needs to dominate headlines. Some carve their place in memory by choosing not to. When Tatjana passed in early 2023, the shock rippled through fashion. It was not only grief for a supermodel lost, but recognition of what she had stood for: integrity, independence, and the courage to walk away. Her story is not one of defeat, but of defiance. Defiance against an industry that wanted to consume her entirely. Today, younger models cite her as inspiration, not just for her beauty, but for her choice to live authentically. She left the runway long before the audience was ready to let her go. And perhaps that is why she endures, because Tatjana Patitz taught the world that sometimes the most powerful statement a woman can make is to disappear on her own terms.